The great hall was silent, but the weight of history was deafening. Golden light glimmered off the newly crowned King Charles, yet the moment that caught the world as breath wasn't at the crown itself. It was his son. Prince William, the boy who once walked behind his mother's coffin, now a man shaped by duty and grief, stepped forward. In front of the king, in front of the nation, and in front of millions watching worldwide, he knelt. I, William, Prince of Wales, pledge my loyalty to you, and faith and truth I will bear unto you. So help me God. It wasn't just ceremony. It was a son honoring his father. It was a rare glimpse of love, duty, and legacy, colliding in one unforgettable moment. But what led here? And what does this gesture truly mean for the future of the monarchy? Let's uncover the story. If you love exploring the hidden human side behind royal traditions, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-stirring royal stories and share this video with someone who admires the strength of family bonds. Now let's dive into this extraordinary moment between father and son.
The air inside Westminster Abbey was almost otherworldly. Though thousands of people filled the ancient hall, an almost sacred stillness lingered. It wasn't the silence of emptiness. It was a silence of anticipation, the kind that presses on your chest and makes every breath feel heavier. The crown, freshly placed upon King Charles's head, gleamed beneath the chandeliers, catching sparks of gold from the flickering candlelight. It was a sight drawn from centuries of tradition, yet somehow it felt new, raw, alive. All eyes turned not to the crown, but to the man walking steadily toward it, Prince William. His steps echoed softly, each one carrying more than the sound of leather against stone. They carried history. They carried memory. They carried the story of a boy who had grown up in the harshest glare of the public eye, now preparing to kneel before his father, the king. And in that breathless pause before he reached the throne, the whole seemed to ask a question that no words could capture. Was this merely ceremony, or was it something deeper? Every movement inside Westminster Abbey that day carried echoes of past. Coronations are not just ceremonies. They are living reminders of a lineage stretching back 1,000 years. From William the Conqueror to Elizabeth II, the ritual of homage has always been more than tradition. It is a thread that ties one reign to the next. But for Prince William, this was not just a chapter in a history book. It was personal. The weight of history pressed down on his shoulders as surely as a crown rested upon his father's head. He was not only kneeling as a subject to his sovereign, he was kneeling as a son to his father, bridging the gap between royal duty and family devotion. Think about it. How many times have we seen sons struggle beneath the shadows of powerful fathers? Yet here, before the eyes of the world, William did not hesitate. He stepped forward to bear that weight, not with fear, but with loyalty. As he approached the throne, the centuries seemed to fold into that single instant. The question was no longer just about monarchy. It was about legacy. It was about love. And it was about the unspoken bond between father and son. When Prince William finally reached the throne, the whole seemed to shrink around him. The noise of the crowd faded, the golden glow of the crown dimmed, and for a heartbeat, it was just father and son. William lowered himself to one knee. His eyes did not falter, his voice did not shake. With quiet strength, he declared, I, William, Prince of Wales, pledge my loyalty to you, and faith and truth I will bear unto you, as your liegeman of life and limb. So help me God. These words, steeped in tradition, were more than lines recited from history. They were a living promise, a son's vow, a moment that drew a line between what had been and what was to come. King Charles looked down, the weight of the crown upon his brow matched by the weight of emotion in his heart. Here was his heir, his blood, not just swearing allegiance to the crown, but offering devotion to the man who wore it. And for those watching, it was impossible not to feel the depth of it all. This wasn't just pageantry. It was love and duty entwined, unfolding in real time before the eyes of the world. The world. Charles had just become king. The crown, the orb, the scepter, symbols of power and continuity, rested in his hands. But to William, standing there before him, Charles was something else entirely. He was a man who had carried him through heartbreak, the father who had stumbled yet always tried to guide, the parent who had lived long in waiting and longer still in service. It's easy to see a monarch and forget the human being beneath the robes. But in that moment, you could sense both realities existing side by side. Charles wasn't only the king of the United Kingdom. He was a father of 2 sons, one of whom now knelt before him in loyalty. The years had not been easy. Criticism had been constant. Personal struggles had been laid bare for the world to judge. Yet here he was, crowned, steady, and watching his eldest son pledge faith not just to the institution of monarchy, but to the man behind it. It was a reminder that even kings carry scars. And it was precisely those scars that made this exchange more powerful, more human, and far more unforgettable. Before the man in uniform knelt at his father's feet, he was once a boy walking behind a coffin. The world still remembers that image. 2 young princes, William and Harry, side by side, their faces pale with grief, as they followed their mother, Princess Diana, on her final journey. For William, that walk was more than a public duty. It was the moment childhood ended. Every step on that long, silent road carved resilience into his heart, but also left scars invisible to the eye. That boy, carrying grief too heavy for his years, grew into the man who would one day kneel in Westminster Abbey, stronger but forever marked by loss. It's impossible to see William's pledge to his father without remembering the path that brought him there. To kneel in loyalty after walking through so much sorrow is not just ceremony, it is survival, transformed into strength. And as Charles looked upon his son, surely he too remembered, not only the grandeur of the Abbey, but the haunting silence of that funeral. That is what made this moment more than history. It was healing. It was the past and the present finally standing together in one act of devotion. Behind the palace gates, away from cameras and ceremonies, the story of Charles and William has always been complex. They were never just king and heir, but father and son, bound by love, yet shaped by shadows. Charles was a man who spent much of his life waiting to inherit a throne, waiting to prove himself, waiting to balance personal happiness with royal expectation. William, on the other hand, grew up under the world's watchful eye, often needing to be stronger than a boy should ever be. Their paths, though intertwined, sometimes pulled in different directions. There were moments of distance, times when misunderstandings lingered longer than they should have. But there were also quiet reconciliations, the shared walks, the quiet conversations, the recognition that both had weathered storms too heavy for most families to imagine. And here, in Westminster Abbey, those shadows did not vanish, but they softened. William's kneeling was not blind obedience. It was understanding. It was acceptance. It was a light that comes when a father and son, after years of struggle, finally meet eye to eye. In that exchange, the world witnessed not perfection, but forgiveness, and that was far more powerful. When William spoke the ancient words, "I pledge my loyalty to you, faith and truth I will bear unto you, as your liegeman of life and limb," they carried far more than formality. On the surface, it was tradition, the heir swearing loyalty to the sovereign. But underneath, it was a son acknowledging his father, a man promising to stand beside the one who had shaped his journey. The word liegeman may sound archaic, but its meaning is intimate. It speaks of loyalty not only in public duty, but in the deepest bonds of life itself. For William, those words carried the weight of his childhood memories, the lessons learned through grief, and the guidance, sometimes imperfect, his father had given. And for Charles, hearing those words from William must have struck with a force stronger than any quiet him. They were a promise of support, not only for the monarchy, but for the man wearing the crown. The world saw a ritual state, but those who listened closely understood. This was a personal vow, a bridge of faith and truth between generations, between duty and love. A vow that would echo long after the Abbey fell silent as William knelt. Many couldn't help but look beyond the present. For one day, it will be him upon that throne, with his own son stepping forward to pledge loyalty. In that instant, you could almost glimpse the future unfolding, the continuity of monarchy, the unbroken chain of duty and devotion. But William's homage wasn't just about what will be. It was about showing who he already is. A leader shaped by hardship, a father devoted to his own children, and a man who understands that wearing a crown means carrying both honor and heartbreak. The sight of William kneeling before Charles was a powerful reminder that before becoming a king, one must first learn to serve. That humility, that willingness to honor those who came before, is what will prepare William for the weight that will one day rest upon his shoulders. And when that day arrives, people will remember this moment. They'll remember the son who knelt before his father, not with fear, but with strength. It was not only a reflection of loyalty, it was a quiet rehearsal for destiny itself. While father and son stood at the heart of Westminster Abbey, the world leaned in. Millions watched from living rooms, city squares, and phone screens. For many, this was their first time witnessing such an ancient ritual live. But what captured people most wasn't the pageantry, it was the humanity. In a divided world, the sight of a son kneeling before his father struck a universal chord. It reminded people of their own families, their own fathers and sons, their own moments of respect and reconciliation. Stripped of robes and jewels, the gesture was something deeply relatable, a son saying, "I'm with you, I stand by you." Across Britain, emotions ran high. Some saw continuity, others saw healing. Some were moved by the sheer gravity of tradition, while others simply saw a touching exchange between two men bound by blood and love. And beyond the nation's borders, the message still resonated. The monarchy, often criticized, often scrutinized, showed a side rarely visible, not just the weight of power, but the weight of family. It was a reminder that even in the grandest halls of history, the moments that truly move us are the most human ones. When the echoes of William's pledge faded, the Abbey seemed to exhale. The formality of the moment was over, yet its meaning lingered like a heartbeat. Yes, it was history. Yes, it was tradition. But more than anything, it was family. Father and son, bound not only by duty, but by years of shared trials, stood face to face. Behind the grandeur of velvet robes and jeweled crowns was something much simpler: love, respect, and the quiet understanding that family endures even under the heaviest weight of expectation. Crowns may shine, but they cannot hold a kingdom together. Laws may guide, but they cannot warm the human spirit. It is loyalty, love, and the power of family that truly anchor a nation in times of change. That day, William did not only honor a king. He honored the man who raised him, the father who once walked beside him in grief, and now in triumph. And so, as the world watched, it wasn't only a royal moment. It was a reminder to us all that before duty, before legacy, before destiny, comes family. And so, on that unforgettable day, history was not only written in gold and stone, it was written in the bond between a father and a son. William's vow to King Charles wasn't just about monarchy. It was about loyalty, about legacy, about love. Moments like these remind us that even behind crowns and ceremonies, it's family that shapes destiny. And perhaps that's why this moment moved millions, because at its heart, it was something we all understand: the power of standing beside those we love. If this story touched you as much as it did us, don't forget to give it a like. It truly helps. Subscribe for more royal stories told through the lens of humanity, and share this video with someone who cherishes the strength of family. After all, history may be written in books, but its heart is written in moments like this.